after the best part of 30 years in business, Jim Tynan has decided to close the doors of his family kitchen in Portlaoise. Now, to say this has caught local people by surprise this morning is a big understatement. He has a stellar reputation and has attracted a loyal customer base and even enjoyed success in literature, releasing 2 hugely popular cookbooks. So what happened? Jim, you're very welcome to the programme.
Morning, Will.
Now, I think I speak for many people today when I say this is very sad news and has come as a big shock. So what brought it about?
Well, unfortunately the Kitchen and Foodhall ceased trading on Saturday, and due to the effects of current economic climate, business has been very sort of difficult and decreasing for some time, Despite our greatest efforts, we were unable to renegotiate one of our ongoing highest costs, rising costs in rents and rates, etc., together with decreased takings, put huge pressure on the business.
Okay, let's separate them for a moment. The decrease in takings, when did that really kick in?
Well, I suppose the decrease came, you could notice it in, we'll say, autumn of about 2008, it was starting to come. And then you had, into the following year, up to Christmas at that time, there was a big drop-off in people's spend. And you could see that coming along. But, you can sort of work around that, and you can maybe put out there what people, give people maybe what they're looking for, or try and work around the spend that's there. But it was the other costs, that we couldn't negotiate, that were ongoing, and we just couldn't, despite, this really brought us to the line.
And in what way were you trying to duck and dive? Because, for instance, lunch times, people may have been more inclined to bring a packed lunch to work rather than head out, so did you try to adapt?
We done that. We gave out specials at lunchtime, and we provide a small main course and things like that. And we changed our opening hours. From in the morning time, we didn't open as early, and we closed a little bit earlier in the evening, which would have brought down the wage cost. But it was mainly the rising cost, the running costs of the actual premises itself. Mainly, rates, rents, water costs, things like that. And you try and negotiate, and you just pulling your hair out all the time. There was just no giving them, and it just get to a point where you say, this can't go on any further. I've come to the wire, and it just has to stop, because all you're doing is making a bigger problem.
Okay, and if we take rent, for instance,
yeah.
You, I assume, went to the landlord or went to whomever and tried to negotiate a reduction. Was there any movement?
Absolutely. That would be our biggest cost, and we had absolutely no help with that whatsoever. It's totally ridiculous,
because of this upward-only rent review clause?
Yeah, all these rent review clauses and arbitration and back rents and awarding back rents and things like that. And it's just realistic. But, I'm not the only one in this situation. There are hundreds, thousands of people out there in the country with this problem. And I'm not the only one with that problem today.
Yeah, and of course add into that local authority charges, wastewater,
and water charges,
rates and so on.
And meters, water meters and things like that. A water meter on one premises and no water meter maybe on your neighbour's premises. This type of thing. Crazy charges. And
you must have agonised over this decision for a long time,
this
Jim.
is going on. This started about 36 months ago, and it's going on and on and on, and we have done everything possible. I'm sitting at home today. It's not the place I want to be. I've been in that position in Portlaoise for 29 years, and my staff are at home this morning, 24 of them, and that's not what I wished for.
And how severe was the downturn? Were you at a point where you were just not making money, or were you in the red? Were you losing money?
You were actually losing money. It was actually costing you to be there.
So there was no other option available?
You had no other option available. You just weren't bringing in, when you weigh up all the situation, what you have to pay out and these charges, and it wasn't on. You just couldn't do it.
When did you let the staff know the news?
Unfortunately, we held off, and we only told them on Saturday evening. Just when we ceased trading that evening, we had a meeting. They knew there was something going. They've known for a while. We've had meetings with them, and we have gone, and some of them have gone in 3 days, and as I said, we had reduced our hours and things like that, and they knew that there was something coming.
That must have been a difficult conversation for everybody.
It was a dreadful conversation to have to deliver, a dreadful thing to have to deliver to them on Saturday evening. I can't stress enough how hard, those girls worked. They were so loyal and so hardworking and so giving. And, like, they had their own customers coming in. Each one of them a character in themselves. They attracted in certain people themselves. People that I probably wouldn't even know or have a conversation with, yet they'd have a conversation with a certain member of the staff. And they were responsible for bringing in. It wasn't just me. Without that staff, the kitchen just wouldn't have been.
And were the staff understanding of the circumstances?
They were, I have to say, they were very sympathetic on Saturday evening. And as I said, some of them, they may have known it was coming. And yes, certainly they were very sympathetic.
Okay. Now, you mentioned that you are not the only person in this position, so I presume you chat to colleagues and other people in the industry.
Colleagues around. I've already lost a colleague in that square, and but in other towns, in other counties and throughout the country, and like a couple of weeks ago we were awarded the best casual dining in Laois, and I was at that prize-giving award in Dublin that night, which was run by the Restaurant Association, and it's the first time that I've been in a room with members of the Restaurant Association where they were actually telling the truth to one another, telling each other, how bad it is, or whereas before you'd go in, fellas would put on a brave face and say, oh yeah, we're doing this and we're doing that, and it's grand.
You'd have the bravado and the pride, I suppose.
But it was the first time in all those years that I actually heard people saying, no, this is what it's like, this is how bad it is, I don't know where it's going to end.
And were you taken aback by how many people were saying that?
No, because you knew, as time went on, you knew that people were in the same situation. No matter how much of a brave face you could put on, you knew that it wasn't true.
And do you take solace in that to some extent?
Not really. No, it's not an area you want to be in. You don't want to be there. But probably, yes, maybe, because you're asking yourself, did I do something wrong?
Yes.
Was it something I done? But I don't think it was.
It's just the reality of the industry
It's
now.
the reality of the industry, it's the reality of the times we're in, and this recession that we're in. And, we have lost so many customers. Some of them have gone out of business themselves. A lot of them have taken such cuts in their wages that we don't see them. And on Saturday, I just remarked on Saturday, it did seem to be a busy afternoon, and I actually saw people in that I hadn't seen in for a long time, and it was nice in my own mind. It was nice to see that.
Did you second-guess the decision for a moment?
No, it's been going on. I had to be positive and make this decision, and take the stand. I've been putting it off for a long time, and I've tried every way around it, and unfortunately, in the end, there was no way, because negotiations just broke down and just got to the stage where I said, no, this is just not on. I can't continue.
Now, we had an election not 10 or 11 weeks ago, and one of the mantras was that Ireland should become the best small country in the world in which to do business, and that within 100 days, upward-only rent reviews would be examined and business costs would be lowered and local authority charges and red tape would all be cut and so on and so forth. So here we have an emergency situation, as you've described it, where other businesses may follow the same path that you've been forced to follow. So what action, in your view, needs to be taken now?
Well, I think they need to get in there and look at these rents and stop this upwardly rent-only situation and look at the rates and the water charges. Because it's very uneven. You could have 3 premises side by side on a street, all rated differently, paying different rents, and sometimes to see a place and there's a huge footfall going through it, and think, oh yeah, there should be a high rate on that or whatever, and like the spend can be very low. So they need to get in and set proper rates and be realistic in what to do.
What's next for you, Jim?
Well, I need to get through this now at the minute, and then we will see. We'll take some time out, and I've been through so much. I just feel that I need to freshen myself up and see. Then I'm sure there is something there. I know we will make some sort of a comeback.
You had your whole family invested, and your good wife was doing the baking, if I remember.
My wife was doing the baking, and Caroline and Imelda and Bridget, my 3 sisters, were there as well. Like, they're as important. It wasn't just me. As I said, like the rest of the staff, they had their own customers coming in. They brought in customers themselves. It wasn't always me. It has always been that way. Caroline and Imelda have been with me since day one. And without them, there would have been no kitchen without them. Because the amount of work that they done, probably a lot of it thankless, it just wouldn't happen. you know. So I'm devastated for them this morning. They're at home in their houses and they're heartbroken, and like there's the next generation as well, their children now, which are all in their teens and have growing up knowing nothing else as what we refer to as the shop, as nearly their second home.
And that's it. There's a huge social network collapsing there.
There's a big social network thing there, and like I'm so grateful, you know, to the customers who used to come in there. We knew how important we were to those people. There's people coming in today who came in as babies in prams when we first opened, who are now coming in with their own children. And, you know, even that one woman spoke to me yesterday and she made a comment about coming in, bringing in her baby in a pram back years ago, and what the child used to do when she came in. I didn't know them at that time, and we have later become to be very good friends. And you hear stories like this all the time. And
what are your own best memories from the kitchen?
Oh, look, Will, I have some wonderful memories. I couldn't begin to say which ones, but there have been some marvellous days. Mainly just socialising with the people coming in, and that feeling of it being one big family. Even going back, we'll say, when we started upstairs in 27 Church Street, like we would never have left our address. The kitchen, as you know today, is built on what was the garden of 27, so technically we've never left the address in 27 years. And it was people who came in when we were upstairs in that little house, and you had offices across the road in those days in the health board, and dental offices and nurses' offices and things like that, and my window down and their window down, and orders being shouted across the road. I hope I'm getting nobody into trouble this morning. But memories like that are just fantastic, and those people are since retired and come in every day. You know, and when someone comes in and throws their arm around you in the morning without ever saying anything or take a look at you, say, I think you need a hug today. When things like that happen, it's priceless. You know,
what will you miss the most? Will it be the social contact?
It would be the social contact. It was a pleasure to cook for people every day. We had a very loyal clientele every day at lunchtime. You knew what different ones liked. You knew who liked an old jacket potato or a mashed potato or whatever, and you cooked. It was very personal cooking. Such a one I'd be, and I better have this from, I better have that from. And it was a pleasure to hand it over to that person and see them appreciate what you gave them, what you done from. Simple little thing. Things like that can never be erased from your mind, you know. And then we have all our friends and family that have come through the place and that are no longer with us. That can be very hard.
And there are probably people who had a dependency on it as well. Obviously, you and your family have the financial dependency, but the social contact.
The dependency from a social point of view. You know, there could be, we'd have customers who come in there who have lost loved ones and what have you, and coming to the kitchen was a place where they felt very welcome, very at home. We reached out to them, they reached out to us. It's a bit like the scene in the end of Pretty Woman, you know, and your man says to her, what did she do back? And she says she rescued them back. They rescued us every day as much as we rescued them.
Jim, I can only imagine how much you've agonised over this. So I sincerely wish you the best, and I'm not alone. We have been inundated with calls and texts, and we'll get to some of those in a moment. But the very best of luck, Jim.
Thank you, Will. Thank you very much.
Thanks for taking our call today.